Let's get the latest now on this story. Let's cross live to our reporter, Mnisi, who is live for us in Brakpan. Linda, when assessing the posture of the police top brass who addressed the media, it would appear they would seem cautiously optimistic about where the investigation is at this moment. What do we know?
Yeah, absolutely, Alexandra, and really not wanting to give out much, pertaining to this investigation. You could almost tell that the commissioner does have answers to certain questions, but giving that information out in a case like this, so sensitive, would really jeopardize investigations. I mean, for example, we asked him about the further details relating to the three persons of interest that they've identified. And he says he cannot really give out the details because this is a matter of investigation. But if investigations point to the fact that they may have been the trigger pullers or involved in any manner, then of course they are going to be arrested. Quite a lot of details, right, in relation to this investigation and what exactly it is that they're uncovering as they're going, because at this particular point, there are quite a number of questions relating to whether or not this was a hit, if these are the people that pulled the trigger are in fact the only ones that wanted Marius van der Merwe dead, but also if there is the possibility of there being a mastermind. And he says that the investigations will reveal, but at this point, things like a motive are still being investigated. It's not really clear, right? And again, reiterating that they are not ruling out the possibilities of this case being linked to the Madlanga Commission, but other issues as well. You'd recall that one of the most prominent issues that came out is the issue relating to illegal mining and the operations, but also the possibility of him returning to the Madlanga Commission. So the commissioner saying that all of those are being looked at. In fact, they've cast the net wider to look at other possibilities and what could really be the motive here. He also speaks about the attempted murder case from back in September, where he had been followed by two white males. And he says that particular incident, or the vehicle in that particular incident, is not linked to this one. The one in September is a Mahindra, and here they've identified a Chevrolet. So in this particular Chevrolet, they found it in Alexandra township, but is he able to give us who the owner is at this point? He's unable to do that because he says the investigation into this particular vehicle are also ongoing, because there are a number of issues that they have to deal with, whether or not the vehicle was a stolen vehicle, and really a vehicle that they say was spotted in CCTV footage. So a lot of issues are still being ironed out, but the basic, in fact, the update that they had for the family was in relation to the issues around the possibilities, or these three persons of interest that have been identified. He says at this particular point, if there will be a need of beefing up security for the family, they will do so. But at this point, there hasn't really been a need. So the police essentially came to tell the family that they are still looking at every lead. The commissioner had been engaged with investigators in this matter at the police station, engagements that took for hours. So it seems like the investigations are continuing, and this is one of the cases that the police want to get to the bottom of. But also you'd recall that there was that Nat Joints meeting that happened over the weekend, and he indicates that quite a number of issues were discussed, including beefing up security for all those who are involved, even in the Madlanga Commission. So it seems the issue around security is one that is right at the top of the agenda when it comes to, the witnesses at the Madlanga Commission, but also everybody that is involved, right? So he basically also told us that they don't believe that intelligence failed, because one of the questions I asked him is, if they believe that intelligence in this particular case failed, because this was no ordinary person, he was a witness in a high-profile commission and a commission that had decided to conceal his identity for safety reasons. So could it be that intelligence failed in not picking up the dangers that were involved or that were imminent in his life, particularly because there are also reports in Tantla of him having said that he thinks he will be attacked in this fashion. And he says he believes that intelligence did not fail. They are on top of things, and that's one of the things that they're looking at, really, when it comes to beefing up security. It cannot be that they will, of course, be able to pick up everything, but he believes that beefing up security will, in fact, assist them in preventing any further loss of lives.
Linda, during that briefing, was there any mention of the Van der Merwe family and how they've responded to at least the investigation report they've received so far? Are they satisfied with how this investigation is going?
Well, you would have seen that that particular briefing was conducted by just the police, the top brass in the province as well as nationally, and no member of the family was there. But you can also imagine how they're feeling at this moment. Yes, it is indeed an update, but an update nonetheless that really does not change the situation in their lives. They're grief-stricken. They've lost a loved one, and no kind of arrest or investigation will bring their loved ones back. We don't know how they reacted to the news that they received this evening, but certainly that may have provided a bit of comfort, one might imagine, because you have the police's top brass coming to update you and give you information in relation to the murder case of your loved one. But also you'd remember that this happened in a residential area. How are community members feeling about this? What do they make of it? Do they themselves feel safe? Because particularly around issues of CCTV footage being available, those who gave CCTV footage, one can only imagine or even speculate how they're feeling at this particular point. But there was a gentleman who was standing right next to members of the media as we were getting that briefing, really just showing appreciation to the general for coming out tonight to brief the family, saying that it means a lot to them as community members that he came out this evening to give them a briefing.